Hey everyone, I wanted to make a video about my animation process and to give you guys some insights in the making of our animated short film Freedom. If you haven't seen the video yet, the link will be in the description below. Firstly, I want to start off by talking about the gear that I'm using. Now, just a side note, you honestly don't need these things to make a good animation or even a better animation than I did. Let's start off with the computer. Now, I have an OK graphics card, about 32 gigs of RAM, and I have a high-end processor. And just a general rule, the higher you can get these specs, the smoother your operations will run. Now, secondly is my Wacom Cintiq, and this is a screen display tablet, and most of my work happens on this device while drawing. Thirdly, my mini keyboard. Now, I'm left-handed, so what happens is when I draw and I want to use the shortcuts, I had to move the keyboard every single time while working. So I got this mini keyboard just to make that switch a bit smoother for me. And then lastly, the software that I'm using. These are the three programs that I use the most, is Adobe Photoshop, Adobe After Effects, and Blender. And it's sort of a combination between those three to create the animation. Okay, so now you have a good idea of the software and the hardware that I'm using. So let's talk about the animation process. Step 1, planning. Now, I would start off by just drawing loose sketches, not worrying too much about accuracy, just getting the idea out of my head and then organizing the illustrations on a timeline so I can get a good idea of how it's going to flow. Now, step 2 is blocking out the scene. So I would pop over to Blender and then I would start planning out the environment, sort of getting a feel for how the perspective is going to look for each individual shot. Once I'm happy, I go to step number 3, drawing the final illustrations. Here I would take screenshots of what I did in Blender and then I would start drawing over it to create the final illustrations. But in this step, it's not only about creating the final illustrations, but it's also about breaking the illustrations up into different layers so that these individual parts could be animated easily. Step 4 is about creating the animation. Now, in this step, it's all about making the illustrations move and aligning them to the timeline. There you have it. This was a quick breakdown of my animation process. If you made it this far, thank you. Please let me know in the comments below which one of the 4 steps seems the most interesting to you, and I can maybe make a more in-depth video about that specific step in the future.